It is that time. It is finally draft season at this point here. Today, we are hours away from the start of the 2026 NFL Draft in Pittsburgh, 8 p.m. to start Eastern Time for this one. After weeks and months of speculation, mock drafts, anticipation, we are finally here for night one. And it's going to be a little bit of a quick video. For this one, I'm not going to try and drag it out too much because of this being my full video, my full first video for the mock draft. I have posted a lot of them or the rest of them on shorts, so you can go there to give you a few seconds to quickly just look over them real quick, no in-depth discussion with it. And it's going to be a little bit of a quick video. I'm not going to really take a lot of time to about every player here, just kind of giving my selections, quick thoughts on it, and kind of speed through a little bit here to get it out there before the draft starts for this one. Got 8 o'clock Eastern Time tonight at Pittsburgh here. Best wishes to everyone for their selections. Hopefully no one's pissed off about their picks here and it works out, especially for my Bills here. Hopefully they don't trade out of the first round. I gotta wait all night for them to select at 26 just to find out they trade out of the first round. So we'll see how it pans out here. But let's start the mock draft here. Give my final thoughts for my mock draft. My final one, I think it's like 8.0 now at this point. I have it at maybe 7.0, but I think it might be 8.0 as it stands right now. So first overall, what do we have here? And there's really no anticipation for it. It's Fernando Mendoza. He's been really pinned locked as the first overall pick since maybe halfway through the collegiate season. Whoever the first overall pick was going to be at that point there for the team, but he was going to go first overall no matter what. It was going to be the Jets, the Raiders, the Cardinals, whoever it was going to be at that point there. So again, this is clear cut, obvious. They do need a franchise quarterback. Mendoza gives you the physical tools. 6'5", has good arm strength, decent mobility that you're looking for, especially for Kubiak and what he did with the Seahawks there. I think I don't want to, kind of give a backhanded compliment to for Mendoza, but it'd be similar to Sam Darnold. I mean, I think he's used to it, to a guy who maybe isn't, in terms of the physical ability, really jumps off the charts outside the size, which is similar to Sam Darnold at the point there. But again, good arm strength, good mobility, probably better mobility than Sam Darnold at that case there. So he is familiar with handling a quarterback with that skill set there. And you look at for what the Raiders have with Brock Bowers, with Ashton Jenney, put some money in the offensive line there too. I think it's a great selection here, and I'd love to see what Kubiak can do down the line with Mendoza as the year progresses in his career. So again, first overall pick, Fernando Mendoza, quarterback out of Indiana. Next for the Jets here, I have linebacker Alvaro Reese out of Ohio State. This team desperately needs defensive help, especially with them getting rid of Quillen Williams, Sauce Gardner, already depleting other spots in the defense already. Any talent is needed on the defense, and Reese can give you that linebacker, pass rusher ability, the hybrid, if you want to really call it that. And I've always had him pinned at second overall since really early on. Maybe like my first two mock drafts were different for the Jets, but ever since then, Reese has been pinned, locked at the second overall pick for me for the Jets here. And again, they desperately need any help for that Glenn defense to really convince fans that it was the right decision to keep him for another season as opposed to firing him and being a one-and-done coach. So next for the Arizona Cardinals here, I have pass rusher, David Bailey out of Texas Tech. Phenomenal season in what they did going into the postseason. And again, this is maybe another spot too. You can go at the RC wide receiver with Cardinal Tate. Hot take for that one. You could look at other pass rusher, Ruben Bain Jr., Sony Styles. They're even saying maybe Jeremiah Love at this point. I think certainly, the ceiling for the third overall pick for Love is certainly possible if they want to go with that route, but they desperately need any pass rushing help too. If that's it, Bailey, Ruben Bain Jr. Again, I completely understand if they want Sony Styles in this direction, but to me, I do have David Bailey as the best pass rusher in this draft class here, and getting the one off the board there would be amazing for LaFleur in his first year with the Cardinals. So next for the Tennessee Titans, this is another one I've been pretty clear-cut pinpoint, just probably as much as the first and second overall pick here, Jeremiah Love. Getting an amazing talent like that for Cam Ward is immense, especially if Brian Daboll being the OC there with Robert Saleh being the head coach. This would go a long way. This is a highlight reel, home run hitter, electrifying player, and this would go a long way to Cam Ward. Plain simple, self-explanatory, by far the best offensive player on the draft board here, even if Fernando Mendoza was even available. I'm not saying they would have taken him because obviously they have Cam Ward, but even and the whole, you look at the big board, Jeremiah Love is the best offensive player, I should say, in this draft class. Amazing pick, fourth overall for Tennessee if it does land that way in this one. Again, a huge help for Cam Ward, and it would go a long way. Next for the fifth overall pick here, maybe a little bit controversial just because of the position. People are a little bit worried about that. Don't really put too much value into it. I have Caleb Downs Ohio State. By far the best safety, very versatile. Size is maybe a little bit of concern there, 6'5", a little over 200 pounds. But again, amazing player. You look at what Ohio State did this year, especially defensively, and you see that what's coming out in the draft. Brees, Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles be coming off the board soon. So again, you are getting elite talent. And for Harbaugh coming in there in his first year with the Giants, and I don't want to put all this praise on him saying he's be out of read, but maybe he could be that out of read for the Giants here and really help and really bolster that secondary that desperately needs that help there. Caleb Downs is a great selection. Again, maybe a little bit iffy, controversial because of the safety position, and people don't put maybe too much stock into that. But to me, this is an amazing pick for the Giants here if it does land this way. You can't pass it up. I don't care if it's safety and people kind of look down at that and maybe look at someone else, but it's going to be a good spot here. The only player I would be okay with if they took over Caleb Downs is his teammate Sonny Styles. That'd be pretty much about it. Next, 46th overall pick, I have another Ohio State player coming off the board here, Carnell Tate, I was going to say Ohio State once again. Carnell Tate, wide receiver. This is again pretty self-explanatory for either Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders. You have nobody outside of Jerry Jeudy. And now with David Njoku being gone now, I know, of course, you have the other tight end from Bowling Green that has stepped in and had a great rookie season. But you need the wide receiver help. There is, even with that, too, that you can't even rely on Jerry Jeudy. To me, he's not really a solidified, true number one wide receiver. Yes, he had a great season his first year at Cleveland. It took a step back, along with a lot of other people, too, on top of that. So I don't want to put all on Jerry Jeudy, but you really do need that help for whoever the quarterback's going to be in 2026 there. Good, great speed, can really stretch the field, Great size, 6'3", 195. Maybe hoping lift the weight would be a little bit better on him, but certainly he'll put on weight. Of course, that's not a big issue. But certainly, for me, the best wide receiver in this draft class. But in terms of potential, Jordan Tyson is better than Carnell Tate, but because of injuries, it knocks him down a little bit. Carnell Tate's the best wide receiver here, so get a playmaker, whoever the quarterback's going to be, not just for this year, but looking long-term wise. So I think great selection, 6th overall for the Browns here. 7th overall for the Commanders, I have Rueben Bain Jr. out of Miami, Florida, and it was great help, especially in the pass rushing ability side for Miami, and the defense leading them away all the way to the championship game against Indiana. They do need this one. Washington does need pass rushing help. Again, maybe it's Rueben Bain. You could switch with him and David Bailey at the spot here because of just, for mock drafts, kind of going back and forth of who the best pure edge rusher, I should say, is at this point here. And I kind of say pure because, again, how you look at Arvell Reese and his spot there, edge rusher, linebacker, however you want to look at it as. But certainly a good selection here. Yes, maybe you could look at wide receiver to help Jane Daniels. Maybe you can look at offensive line a little bit. But certainly at the spot, Rueben Bain is a great value for 7th overall, falling down the spot here. A guy who was projected very early on in the process to be the 1st overall pick. He still has a great talent for this one. And again, you look at the defense for Washington, who they really have at the pass rushing ability for Dan Quinn. Not really anybody. I think you really do need that difference maker who, them coming off a disappointing second year after going to his first year with Washington, Jane Daniels' rookie season, going to the conference championship the first year, and having such a deflating season where Daniels got hurt constantly, everything took a step back. Rueben Bain Jr. really helped that Dan Quinn defense, going a long way for this one. Rueben Bain Jr. 7th overall. 8th overall, I finally have the slide ending for Sonny Styles for the Saints here. I think it's a player that's tough to even to pass up at the spot here for the Saints. Again, wide receiver can certainly be a spot here. Maybe you could still argue offensive line, though I don't really think it's the biggest need. You can look at Mansour Delane here on top of that too, trying to replace Marshawn Lattimore at the spot. But for what Sonny Styles brings and offers, it's tough to pass up, especially the size he brings, 6'5", 243. 21 years old. I kind of put it out there because there's going to be older prospects coming down the line too on top of that, especially when we get to Akeem, the 25-year-old coming out, which is still mind-boggling to kind of say out loud. But certainly the spot, this is a guy who I've for other mock drafts in the top 5. And so again, you could interchange him and Caleb Downs at 5th overall. Like I said, the only person I'd be okay with taking over Caleb Downs is Sonny Styles, because Sonny Styles is a great linebacker. He is the second best linebacker outside of Reese at the spot here. His other Ohio State teammate here. So again, I like this selection. They desperately need that, especially with Davis being gone, longtime Saints player for this one. So again, I think that'd be a great selection to really help Kellen Moore out in his second season with the Saints. So next for the Kansas City Chiefs, What are you going to do with the ninth overall pick? Not used to the Kansas City being this high in the drafts, especially in the Patrick Mahomes era. I'm going to go with the safe pick here and go with Francis out of Miami. If this is going to go a long way, again, maybe not flashy. You can go with Delane here. You can look at safety at the spot. You can look at Kenan Sadiq, get another playmaker, maybe a wide receiver there, I say. But Francis is going to go a long way with Juwan Taylor no longer being there, rightfully so, thankfully for their sake. You need to protect Patrick Mahomes coming off of that ACL injury. You definitely need to keep him upright, and this is going to be your long-term tackle that is going to protect Patrick Mahomes for however many years he's going to be there for. That's going to be needed desperately for that. When you want to continue that dynasty, continue constantly being in the playoffs, going to conference championships, competing for Super Bowls, this is going to be a long-term selection. It's going to help Patrick Mahomes. He's going to thank you for the long run. This is a great pick here. The first tackle off the board. And again, I think this is something that you can't pass up at the spot here. With Francis dropping to ninth overall, when there's times he can go a lot higher, and I've had at times in earlier mock drafts go third overall to the Cardinals. This is something you can't pass up on that helps Patrick Mahomes at the spot here. Yes, maybe you want to look at defense at the spot to try and bolster that up for Spagnuolo. But this is going to be a home run pick. And certainly I think as the years progress, if it does pan out this way, this is going to be looked at as one of the best selections out of the 2026 draft. No doubt about that. 10th overall, I have, again, I'm pretty infamous with screwing people's names up. Especially if you're watching a lot, I do it countless times. I think it's Ione for Penn State. The guard from Penn State, we'll call it that. This is also the same reasoning for, like I said, for Patrick Mahomes there. You want to keep Jackson Dart upright. He's taken some big hits already in his rookie season. Of course, some of those, a good amount of those, are self-inflicted with him trying to go through players, not sliding and so forth, but trying to bolster the offensive lineup to keep him upright and not have the Giants in a few years try and draft another franchise quarterback because it doesn't pan out for Jackson Dart in part because of the hits and the injuries he's had. This will go a long way. Again, maybe not the most exciting pick here, but if you walk away in the first round with it, the Penn State guard, I'm not going to try and pronounce his name because I suck at that, and Caleb Downs, amazing selection there for the first 2 rounds, especially that 10th overall pick for Cincinnati. And I would have had him pin going Cincinnati either way because I would say, again, the same exact reason to keep Joe Burrow upright, try and bolster the offensive line. So either way, he would be going 10th overall if it was Cincinnati or the Giants here. So again, great selections at the spot. Going to the Miami Dolphins, I have the replacement for Jalen Waddle. I have Makai Lemon out of USC. This is pretty needed because the wide receiving room right now is basically a skeleton crew from Malik Willis. There's not really any talent there, and that was a big move to get rid of Jalen Waddle, who is a very good wide receiver, great wide receiver, going to Denver now at the spot there, getting an extra first round pick, and of course we'll see him later on in the draft, in the mock draft here. So getting a replacement for for Jalen Waddle is big, and Makai Lemon will go a long way with that for him, as well as helping out Malik Willis at the spot. Some problems coming out of the combine. Seemed like his stock may dropped a little bit because of that. But so again, to me, in my draft board, I am as a second best wide receiver. Yes, even above Jordan Tyson, which might be controversial in some sense, but I do him as a second best wide receiver here. Again, gotta find somebody. I don't think this is a spot where you can pick someone else and you can get a wide receiver late in the first round. No, there's not really. You can get somebody, of course, but it's not going to be at the high level of Lemon or Jordan Tyson. Now, we'll never know how it pans out long-term wise, but at least initially, I have Makai Lemon here. Go get your wide receiver and worry about whoever with the second first-round pick here. So with the Dallas Cowboys, 12th overall, I have Mansour Delane out of LSU, trying to replace Trayvon Diggs here, who's been not that good the last few years, and trying to bolster that secondary up. And for me, the best corner in this draft class between him and Jared McCoy. And usually I have Delane off the board here early on. And I do have McCoy usually going 12th overall here. But how I did my final mock draft here, Delane kind of slid a little bit, going 12th overall for the Cowboys. Again, to be the best cornerback in the draft class, and so trying to bolster that secondary out there. They've already added great players on that side of the ball with Clark from the Micah Parsons trade, Quentin Williams again from the Jets trade, and adding another defensive player of this caliber would be great for Jerry Jones and this defense. And to me, there's not really anything offensively they have to do. They do have a decent running game. Dak Prescott, of course, they have George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb. Offensive line is good enough. So this is I think to me, is a pretty no-brainer spot for 12th overall for the Cowboys. For the Rams at 13th overall, I have Spencer Fano out of Utah. This is someone that I've seen some people pin Jordan Tyson or any wide receiver going to, and I understand that because of Devontae Adams and kind of the controversy with Puka Nacua. But certainly, we look at Matthew Stafford being up there in age. You look at what he's done. He's shown you he still has a lot left in the tank. Being the MVP, winning his first MVP of his career, first team All Pro, being close to going back to the Super Bowl. Yes, when you're right there, I think you should do everything you can to protect Matthew Stafford at the spot. And again, I think he still has maybe 2 or 3 years left in him, at least in terms of high level play for that one, or maybe even just playing regardless. But certainly we want to maximize that small window left for Matthew Stafford there. Showed you this past year he has that capability still. Getting offensive line help would be big there. So I have, and that's also for the pick from the Atlanta Falcons. So we'll see how it pans out there. We'll see, of course, what we'll do with that, obviously. But certainly with Spencer Fano, this would be a good spot here. Again, what I've said for the other ones, it's me kind of saying the same thing over and over and over again, but trying to keep the quarterback upright and helping Matthew Stafford being up there in his late 30s. You don't want to get him getting hurt and getting unnecessary hits where it could potentially derail his team and his career and kind of cut a little bit shorter than it should be. For the Baltimore Ravens, I do have Jordan Tyson. Maybe a little bit surprising at the spot here, but when I look at the value potential of what he can be, if you can get past the injury aspect, this would be a home run pick for Lamar Jackson. Now, you already have a Pro Bowl, multiple-time Pro Bowler in Zay Flowers. You still have Derrick Henry. You have Mark Andrews still. You lost his likely to free agency. But adding a player of this caliber would be amazing for them. It would be. I think it would set the tone of just going out there and saying, you know what? Even though we know you are a multiple-time Pro Bowler, multiple-time first-team All-Pro, I'm sure you can probably carry the load and do a lot of things yourself with the talent you have. Let's go out there and give you another piece. We don't have to give it to you, a player like this. We can go maybe defensively and get someone else, pass rushing side, linebacker maybe. For this one, maybe give you someone on the offensive line, even though I don't think there's really anyone at value in terms of the trenches of getting someone in the first round. But you know what? Let's go out there and get a playmaker like Jordan Tyson and help you out even more. And it's certainly if it pans out, this is going to be potentially a big steal years down the line here. So I like this pick here. It could be it's aggressive, maybe a little bit, something a gamble because again the injury aspect of his career at the college level. But I think it's too much talent to pass up here at 14th overall for the Ravens. And again, I think this will really go a long way of just showing like that how much they really want to help Lamar Jackson now. Again, go out there and you know what? We're going to give you another first round wide receiver. And this could even be better than Zay Flowers, certainly, at this spot here. So 15th overall, I have Ken Sadiq out of Oregon. When you look at Mike Evans no longer being there, Chris Godwin getting up there in age and being injury-riddled, you really don't have that much outside of Emeka Egbuka, who I was a big fan of last year coming out of the draft. I think he was certainly one of the better wide receivers in the draft, coming out of the draft class, probably the second best one outside of McMillan that went to the Carolina, and of course how you want to look at Travis Hunter at the time there in terms of cornerback wide receiver, but certainly the second best pure wide receiver outside of McMillan there. Great selection. His production did taper off towards the end after a roaring start of his rookie season, but adding another wide receiver or another playmaker, I should say, for Baker Mayfield is big here because again you can't really bank on Chris Godwin being healthy, and at this point here, what is he going to be at this point here? At his age and injuries, I don't know if you can really truly rely on him and what he has left in the tank. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Chris Godwin because of that factor. So I look at Ken Sadiq and go, hey, again, getting another playmaker for Baker Mayfield and trying to at least have two viable options for him when Chris Godwin does get hurt there. So 50th overall for the Bucs. That's a spot where I've typically had Sadiq the last few mock drafts going. I did have him at one point falling all the way down to 29, which I know is completely unrealistic, but has bounced back up to the top 15. So with the 16th overall pick for the Jets, I have Dylan Thiemann. If I said his last name right, again, as a PA announcement here, always horrible at pronouncing people's names. Dylan from Oregon. Again, the same thing too I said for about Aaron Glenn for Reese. You need to bolster that secondary up here. And certainly Jerry McCoy could be a selection at the spot. Again, certainly could be a good pick for the Jets here. And this more goes back to what I said about the no interception. This certainly plays more in the favor for the Jets. So at the spot here, it's having the secondary help out here, but I think anything needs to be thrown at the defensive side for these two first round picks. I think again maybe wide receiver if you want to argue that, I completely understand. Could this be Ty Simpson? There have been a couple mock drafts I've made where I've had Ty Simpson going 16th overall, but certainly I have Dylan Thielen going here. He's been kind of rising on the draft boards here, and he's really been at the spot. He's been always pinned to the Minnesota 18th overall, so 16th for me isn't that much of a reach for him at the spot 16th overall. But again, I think any help in the secondary, whether it's McCoy, whether it's Thielen, if you want to say even Emmanuel McNeil Warren at the spot, C.J. Allen, or sorry, not C.J. Allen because you got Reese already. Pass rusher, again, if you want to look at Keldrick Falk or Keem. There's a lot of ways you can go to the defense side, but I think this has to be, again, a defensive pick for the Jets here. So I have Dylan going 16th overall. For the Lions here, I have Monroe Freeling going to the Lions here. Again, trying to keep Jared Goff upright. I think you need help. You need some help for the offensive line. Again, can you go for a running bait for Aiden Hutchinson? Sure. Can you go for C.J. Allen? Sure. And there's times early on I've had C.J. Allen going 17th overall, going to the Lions here. But I've kind of more so looked at Freeling, who is one of the best offensive linemen on my draft board here. So I think it's a little tough to pass up at 17th overall, and going to get a good pairing mate alongside the other tackle in Sewell for Jared Goff here. So for the Vikings, what are they going to do here? Since I've always gotten Dylan going 18th overall, I have Akeem from Miami. This is a guy who had, finally had a breakout year in his collegiate career, and that's a big issue. He's been in the college level for a while and finally broke out, as well as him being 25 years old is a big issue with that too. So I don't know where he's going to pan out because of those two things. I think he will go somewhere in the late teens. I have Minnesota here. They do need pass rushing help for Brian Flores at this spot. Again, any other places you can go, there's a lot of variety, even for the pass rushing side. If you want to go maybe in Cassius Howell, again, Keldrick Falk at this spot. TJ Parker is another selection here for the edge rushing spots, but I do have Akeem going to the Vikings here, 18th overall. 19th, I have Keldrick Falk going to the Carolina Panthers. Same way, too. I think it really showed, especially in the playoff game, they need somebody to get to the pass rusher, especially with Burns no longer being there, going to the Giants or trade him to the Giants. Yes, that's pretty evident that they need someone to get to the quarterback here. Keldrick Falk, I'm not the biggest fan of him. Didn't really put up the biggest numbers at Auburn this past year, but certainly does have the physical tools and maybe can turn to be something for Carolina. Other players you can look to, again, Cassius Howell, Cam McDonald, if you want to look at that, TJ Parker, like I talked about. One person I didn't even put on the list here, outside chance maybe of being a first-round pick, Zion Young from Missouri. I have some people now, as we got closer to the draft, rave about him and potentially could be a outside chance of a first round pick. Maybe it's a little too high for 19th overall, I will say that, but certainly throwing his name out there too for this one. And for the linebacker for the Cowboys, I do have linebacker C.J. Allen. They do need to bolster that linebacker group up there. And again, for C.J. Allen, I think it's a good spot here because he did do well at the combine. A little bit small for his frame, 6'1". I think 235. They have him listed as. Let me just look real quick. I think it was 6'1", 235. Yeah. For this one. So I think the size will drop him a little bit, but certainly tested well at the combine. And I think the 20 is a good spot. Could he go a little bit higher? Sure, he can. There is other spots here, like I said, for the Lions here, 17th overall. That certainly could be a good possibility for that, as they need help on the linebacker spot for Campbell in the defense. By him going to the Cowboys, the second pick or the original pick for the Packers, going 20th overall. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, I have a second quarterback come off the board here. I have Ty Simpson. Seeing that Aaron Rodgers cannot give him a deadline and just can't be like anyone else and just tell him early on and have to drag things out here, I think this is almost a screw you pick and get your franchise quarterback for Ty Simpson. Now, I'd say you only drafted because of that, but I think it does play in part for that. And I think they have to find someone for their franchise guy. I mean, Ty Simpson is very polarizing, certainly controversial. People think, is he going to pan out well? Decent size, 6'2", 208. He is, for me, and maybe for a lot of people, the second best quarterback in the draft class, outside, of course, Fernando Mendoza, and played well this past year in 2025 for Alabama. I know it didn't pan out, of course, in the playoffs well because they got smacked by Indiana in the Rose Bowl, but certainly at times did show flashes, did play well, did test well. You look at the grades here for the comparables for PFF, if you do believe into that. Intermediate grade, no pressure grade, deep throw grade was great. The pressure grade is a little bit lacking, a little bit below average here, but again, certainly is. I think he's going to be a decent quarterback. I don't know if he's going to be amazing, and maybe it's something that's certainly a knock into a reason why you shouldn't draft him, but I think he'd be a decent quarterback. I'm not going to say he's Kenny Pickett. I think he's better than Kenny Pickett at this spot here, but I think it's great value for the Steelers having him fall here. And I think a team could probably trade up already and trade back in the first round. Maybe trade up to get a guy like for Ty Simpson. So we'll see how it pans out here. I don't have, of course, as you've seen the trend, I have no trades or mock trades in this mock draft here. I'm keeping everyone 1 through 32 as it stands. And for Pittsburgh here, I think it's a good landing spot for him as for this team. Or now being with new head coach now with McCarthy, having good wide receivers with DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman, decent running game there. You still have good pieces on the defensive side. Good landing spot for Ty Simpson to take the reins if he sits at least his first year, going the second year, but I'm sure he'll probably play his rookie year if it comes down to it. Now for the Chargers, I have Jerry McCoy going to the Tennessee. This is probably a lot farther that he should fall because, again, usually I have him going 10 spots earlier, 12th overall to the Cowboys because I have Delane going off the board earlier. But to me, again, anything on the defense side that is needed, pass rushing ability has helped. Quarterback, especially with, you look at Sante Samuel, other players being gone in the secondary, I think that is certainly a big need too. Yes, offensive line could be a spot here to try and keep Herbert upright. You saw it pretty, evidently in the wild card game against the Patriots. But for me here, I don't think there's really anyone. Again, you can go tackle. Sure, you can go tackle at this point here with Cam Proctor from Alabama. But to me, trying to add someone in the secondary would be a good selection here for Harbaugh in this defense here, 22nd overall. There are times where, yes, I have a wide receiver come off the board here, but typically I've stuck to offensive linemen because they really need that. I mean, who do they really have to protect C.J. Stroud? Not saying all that is because all the faults and the problems that Stroud has had the last couple of years is on the offensive line. It certainly is a good part on himself, but helping out, getting protection, again, help needed for that for the front five is a good option to go. Again, you have Denzel Boston here. You have other people available for the wide receiver position, but again, I think it would be a good bet to help C.A. Stroud here at 28. So for the 29th overall pick, I have Kane McDonald getting your probably inevitable Chris Jones replacement. So you look at the cap hit he has this upcoming year. I'm pretty sure they've already fixed that already, but certainly someone that's maybe out, looking, potentially going to be out the door relatively soon. And again, someone trying to get in that defensive line in general to pair up alongside right now. Chris Jones is needed because I think outside of that, there really is no big help really. You have people that are decent. You have for the pass rush ability. Yes, you have Nick Bolin. You have who else? Who's the other guy? George Kalafdis as well. It's not good enough. Even with that too, Chris Jones is still the reason why that defense line is as good as it is. And when he's gone, you are screwed. So I think right now, yes, you get both sides of you get another interior defensive lineman to help Chris Jones, as well as of course him being the inevitable replacement for him as well. So I think it's a great selection here at 29 here for the second first round pick they got from the McDuffie trade. McDowell 29 overall. Getting close to the end here, 3 more picks. For the second first round pick for the Miami Dolphins, I have Terrell out of Clemson. This is a guy who's gone a little bit higher in my mock draft, especially in the earlier ones. But just kind of how the mock draft has panned out for this one, he's dropped a lot to 30th. But again, trying to get that secondary help, they do desperately need that with Fitzpatrick gone in the safety position and them really having no one else at the cornerback spot here. Yes, it seems like this is a pretty no-brainer spot for Miami to go in the secondary help there. So you already got your wide receiver 11th overall early in the draft here. So for 31, I have Denzel Boston. Just trying to get some help for Drake May, seeing that Stephon Diggs is no longer on the team. And you really don't have too much else after that. Denzel Boston is a good selection here. Got another player that can stretch the field, has good size at 6'4", 209. And again, something less controversial than Stephon Diggs. I'm sure it's going to be very tough for any wide receiver coming here and kind of do what he did at that spot there, even though he did have a good season for the Patriots here. But again, trying to get some offensive weapons for Drake May going to his third year after just falling short in the Super Bowl in this one. And what a great sophomore season, second year for May to go to the Super Bowl. You look at the sky's the limit potentially for them, and trying to get more help for him is certainly key. Yes, you can look at the offensive line because that was a big issue in the Super Bowl. What Seattle was able to do, they were able to constantly attack them, get under pressure, have them make mistakes. But I think at this spot here, getting a wide receiver would also help. You can get a offensive lineman down the road in the draft. And then finally wrapping up this mock draft for the Super Bowl champions, Seattle Seahawks, I have edge rusher T.J. Parker out of Clemson. Again, when you look at DeMarcus Lawrence, a lot of people that you're not sure if they're going to, at least for Lawrence's sake, if he's going to still be there, or just in general, just trying to get more pass rushing help would be big here for the Seahawks here. And again, for TJ Parker, a guy who's been, at least a lot of my mock drafts, around this range here, more so like the last couple in the, the early 20s, does fall to the last pick in the first round. But certainly is a good option, a solid option. And a lot of these players are interchangeable, where the pass rushing ability is going to go outside of, at least, of course, the top guys that you usually know are going to go with, again, Bailey, Ruben Bain, and so forth. Outside, you really don't know how it's really going to pan out outside, of course, for the order, at least for us. And again, give you one more look for the final mock draft for myself before we get to, again, hours away for the start. Let me know your thoughts down below on my picks here, if you like it or not. And as well as for the for real draft, who you think is going to happen, how you think it's going to pan out, you think there's going to be a lot of trades, how you think it's going to go. So with all that being said, appreciate for you guys watching. Good luck to everyone in the draft tonight. Hopefully you get your players you want and teams don't really screw things over for you for this one. So we're going to sit back and watch this process for the next few days and see what happens for the new generation of players coming in the NFL.